It's the Almost Perfect Podcast.
Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Hi, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we're learning from PJ Black. Now, PJ is a professional wrestler, and if you have interacted with me for any amount of time, you know I am stoked as fuck to be presenting this to you today. Because yeah, I am a huge wrestling fan. I have been my entire life. I've been not as proud to say it at some times, but these days I've learned to just enjoy what you enjoy. And I thoroughly enjoy wrestling, and I thoroughly enjoyed this chat. PJ was super open and honest. He shared a ton, man. This dude's lived quite a life and is having a lot of fun, and is quite a free spirit. So there's quite a lot to learn from this one. I mean, the dude broke his legs base jumping twice and has managed to recover. And I've seen him wrestle lately, and the dude is clearly, like, he says he feels the best he ever has, and he seems to be looking the best he ever has, genuinely. And this is a dude who's pinned John Cena twice in the WWE when he was Justin Gabriel. So yeah, you're gonna learn a lot from this chat. We even got to chat a little bit about Alan Watts, which has been like a running theme on this podcast over the last year or so. So yeah, man, you're gonna dig it. And something else that you're gonna dig is the fact that we have got merchandise, more merchandise, not just the mugs. We have got t-shirts. Yes, we have got Almost Perfect t-shirts. The thing I teased last week has happened. I have them. I'm wearing one. I am currently wearing my own branded merch, and it feels quite nice. It's quite nice. Like, it's a nice little step, you know? One more ladder. No, one more rung in the ladder, and we're on our way. Just gonna try flip these t-shirts and get some more made. Flip these t-shirts and then get some different designs made. And then eventually, inevitably, I'm gonna be chatting to some past guests of the podcast about doing some exclusive designs, doing some limited print run things. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna have to learn how to make an online store, but I'll get into that soon enough. And yeah, if you want a t-shirt, they are 150 Rand each. I will be putting out all the details on the social medias fairly soon. And from Monday, basically, they will be available. But if you're a patron over patreon.com/almost perfect, then you can get them for free if you've been a patron at the $10 level for longer than 6 months. So this is a surprise. There you go. If you've done that, you are getting a t-shirt. And going forward, if you do that, you are getting a t-shirt. I'm busy currently trying to work a deal with a courier company. I'm not too sure which one yet. I've reached out to a few. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, we're gonna try and get the merch game up in here. Partly inspired by, the chat I had with Sipo last week, but this was already in the works. But it just, it reminded me that you gotta do the things as an independent artist to try and, grow your brand, as as they say. So yeah, you can hit me up, bob@almostperfect.co.za, and we can make a shirt happen for you. What's happened this week? Well, sheesh. Quite a lot, and then also like nothing, because I quit Twitter again. But I think this time I'm doing it for real. The place is not good for me, man. It just isn't. It just fucks with me, and it's clearly not helpful. It clearly makes me bug out, and I just don't want to be in that space anymore. So, yeah, going forward, I'm only going to be posting links and pictures and stuff like that relate to Almost Perfect Media things on the Almost Perfect Media Twitter account, which I probably should have done a while ago. yeah, I just got fucking bummed over the weekend by the Kanye shit and the fucking Cristiano Ronaldo shit, and like just the way like dudes can get away with a lot of fucking bullshit, and society just doesn't care. Like, just like looks the other way when the person's entertaining, and yeah, I don't know. That bummed me out, and it's actually bumming me out again right now, just talking about it. But it is what it is. I don't fucking know what to do about it other than just try and be a better person. Try and, look at where I've been a shitty fucking dude in my own life, and yeah, vow to never do that again. Vow to never be that again. And just constantly try to learn more and be better. But that's my journey, and I can encourage you to come along for the ride as well. Although it can get pretty uncomfortable when you really look in the mirror. Speaking of which, watched Promising Young Woman last night with my girlfriend, and that is a fucking movie. There are some choices made. There is some very clear moral shit that goes on, but also not. There's it strings you along quite nicely in a lot of different ways, and really says a lot about a lot. And like, I don't want to be more exact with it, because I think, yeah, they really, there's so many surprises, there's so many things that make you think throughout the film. And for me, like, I know some people might not dig the ending or might not dig a lot of it, but personally, I was like, damn, this is a good fucking movie. So check it out. It is heavy. It is definitely heavy. It's got all the trigger warnings, all of them. Like, just know that going into it, you're gonna see some things you don't want to see. You're gonna deal with some things you don't want to deal with, and that's probably why you should watch it. So yeah, Promising Young Woman, great film. I really enjoyed it. Go watch it. And then lastly, on my little notepad here is the other radio, which means that on Monday you can hear Bob Perfect back on the airwaves, back on the radio. Yeah, ever since I've left DYR, there has been a little bit of a gap in my heart for being on the mic and playing songs and talking music and doing all those things. So you can hear me doing it with a new show called Blowing Smoke with Bob on Monday. It's going to be every 2 weeks, and that's on the other radio. I'm super stoked with the first episode. I've already recorded it. I've tried to get it as live as possible. That's been the vibe, is to like, I have edited things slightly, but for the most part, yeah, I did it just selecting tracks, talking in between, selecting tracks, talking in between. And you can hear that on Monday, the 6th of September, and then every second Wednesday going forward from there. Go check out the other radio, doing so many dope things, so many rad shows on there. Like, I actually listened to the radio again, which it's been a while. So yeah, go check them out. I dig the vibe. I'm stoked to be a part of it, and I think you're really going to enjoy Blowing Smoke with Bob. So that's the main shit I gotta tell you. Now we're gonna try and get your money out of you. So you can skip ahead if you want. You know what's gonna happen here. But it is time to shout out the titular titles tier. Now, what is the titular titles tier? I hear you say. Well, that is the top tier over at patreon.com/almostperfect, and is where you can become a part of the cast and crew right here at Almost Perfect Media. I do just first want to give a big thank you to everyone who supports over Patreon, no matter what level you're at there. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to get the shirts made, and it's nice to have that bit of budget to work with. That it continues to grow is some heartwarming shit, but it also has some real world effects, so thank you very fucking much. And with the sentimental stuff out the way, let's shout out the team. Shout outs, of course, to Rose Ventura, who is the Director of Purchasing. Shout outs to Kath Jenkin, who is the inevitable ruler of the universe and Queen Swifty. Shout outs to Julian, who is the king. Shout outs to our Almost Perfect hedge fund manager, that is, of course, Karan Sleman. Shout outs to Stephen Olivier, who is our executive producer. Shout outs, of course, to Rousseau, who is our chief sales officer of Subtle Heresies in the greater Overberg region. Fuck, I hate those asses. Shout outs to Neil Green, who is the key grip. Shout outs to our pantsless weasel, that is Tyron Love. And shout outs to Vishendra Naidu, who is our spiritual advisor. Shout outs to Karan Chetty, the assistant to the regional manager. And shout outs to our anonymous benefactor. Yeah, no, I'm done with giving clues on the anonymous benefactor. Fuck it, you want stickers? You got to sign up to the Patreon. I'm done. If you can figure out who the anonymous benefactor is based on previous week's clues, then cool. You can do it. If you can't, well, fuck it. Sorry. It's just the way it is. I'm done. I've given you too much. You've taken too much from me. And I just can't go on. But anyway, shout out to the anonymous benefactor. Yeah, that's the things. You know the other things. I'm not going to delay things any further. Here comes the Almost Perfect Podcast with PJ Black. So how are you living, PJ?
Living okay, up and down, but we make the best of each day.
I mean, you're someone who literally lives up and down, though. Like, you like jumping off things. You like that roller coaster life a little bit. But I guess the difference here has been maybe slowing down a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you consider slowing down. I do a lot of crazy things. I skydive, I base jump, I fly parachutes. Recently, I took up paragliding, which is a much slower version of a canopy sport, but people still think that's crazy. So I guess that's kind of my retirement sport, and for me, that's slowing down.
Yeah, I saw on Instagram, I saw you paragliding the other day, and I was like, yeah, that's a little different to the base jumping because you've broken, like, how many bones from base jumping? I know the last time you did it, you broke both your ankles and maybe had to have your finger reattached, if I remember correctly. So is this now like maybe I need to calm down a little bit, or?
I mean, I'll never calm down. This is the life I live. I'm not like, if you get into a car accident, would you stop driving? I wouldn't. So I mean, it's just every sport has its injuries. So these are my injuries. It's just a little bit more crazy than most sports, but that's not going to make me stop doing my hobbies. Yeah, I have broken both my legs twice, and then I broke my left one again, and then on Halloween I broke my right one again. I have steel plates all over my body, which is funny, because for the first 35 years of my life, I didn't break any bones. I didn't even get stitches. I wasn't even stung by a bee. Like nothing. All the crazy shit I did as a kid, nothing got me. And then the last 5 years, it's just one thing after the other. I wonder if it's like catching up, or maybe I kind of got complacent because I never got injured in my life, and I'm way more careful now. It only took like 5 injuries.
Well, this thing, has it made you, just reassess some things and just go, cool, like I'm still going to do this, but I'm going to do it in a more cautious way?
Exactly. More calculated risks. That's what base jumping is. People think we're just some adrenaline junkies or some yahoos just trying to jump off big things. It's actually a very, very meticulous sport. We plan for days and days, look at the weather, look at the winds, we measure where we're going to land, where we're going to jump from, like how we're going to get into this building or bridge or whatever. It's a very, very calculated sport, actually.
So is part of the thrill of it all of that? Is it all the lead up to it as well as the actual doing it?
Yes, exactly. It's the planning, and then once you pull it off, it's like, oh my goodness, I pull it off. It's like it's just such an overwhelming feeling. It's hard to explain. It's because it's the adrenaline mixed with all the other emotions in there. Like, wow, I pulled it off.
But when you're going through it, like how calm are you, or how how much like freaked out are you as it's going on? Like once you've jumped off the bridge or once you jumped off the building, what's going through your mind there?
Well, that's the thing, dude. It's base jumping to me or skydiving is a forced meditation. Because think about this: I'm standing on the edge, I'm looking down. You don't think about anything. You don't think about bills you have to pay, stuff that you have to do tomorrow, or things that happened in the past. You don't think of anything. You're literally completely present in that moment. And that's what meditation is, right? Just being completely present in that moment. So it's kind of like an active meditation, if you will. And a lot of people don't understand that, and obviously you get nervous and your heart's pounding, but your head is completely clear. Like you can literally just, everything moves in slow motion and you can just feel your heartbeat. And to me, that's awesome. It's a forced meditation.
I definitely understand that a bit more now. Like I've recently gotten into meditation, but I've also done some things. Like I've done the swing at Moses Mabita, which is just literally a rope that pulls you and you swing in the air like above the soccer pitch. And that was something that was just like, as you're describing it, it's like there's nothing else going on in your mind other than what is happening right then and there. It's a pure, absolutely pure moment. So I get why you might want to chase that. I liked having a rope attached, you know? I felt like there was some safety with that.
Right, right. But I mean, now you're relying on the rope, right? If you think about any base jumping or skydiving accident, it's never ever equipment malfunction. It's always user error. Now the rope makes you feel a little bit safer, but I feel safer when I'm in control, when I know I can, if something happens to my parachute, I can always cut it away and pull the reserve or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes a lot more sense. You especially yeah, me like in that position, I didn't have any real choices if something went wrong there. Like that was all up to the other guys and yeah.
The rope
So I
and
yeah,
the rope.
Speaking of the rope, you're someone who jumped off the top rope quite a few times, and I watched a match of you here in South Africa against Rob Van Dam. I can't believe you actually got up on those ropes. What was the situation there? Because the ring collapsed, and was that intentional, or what was that match? Because it was such a weird thing to watch on YouTube.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional at all. So it was a boxing ring. We had this ring made by a company in South Africa, which is a pretty famous boxing company, right? But they said they built wrestling rings before. So they built us that wrestling ring. And we asked them, where did you guys get the dimensions? And they were like, oh, off Wikipedia. And we're like, wow, this is
Oh,
not a wrestling ring. So we had to make some adjustments. Luckily, we had like a lot of international referees there who kind of knew what they were doing. And, we were under a time crunch, but they made it manageable. It wasn't the best ring ever, but we still put on the show. Just like anything else, right? The show must go on. Doesn't matter.
yeah.
Sometimes the ropes break, but we still gotta. The show has to go on. And I knew. I told all the guys. I was like, "Yo, don't do anything from the top rope because I don't think that ring's gonna last." And people pay big money, so they want to at least see the main event. So I knew too when I was climbing up there. I was like, "Something's gonna happen here," but hey, whatever. Like, luckily none of us got hurt. But yeah, it was a crazy experience, and it kind of looked cool. A lot of people thought it was intentional, but most people thought it wasn't. So, and that's the point of wrestling, right? You want to suspend people's disbelief. You want them to ask questions of like, "Whoa, did that guy? Is he dead or is he is he alive?"
Yeah, I mean that is the whole gimmick or the whole trick to it is to try and make it yeah, like as close to ride the line as close as humanly possible. And you're someone who's been doing it for a very, very long time. How I know your dad was a super famous South African wrestler. My gran even knew who he was, and I assume like that's something that like actually like helped you get into the business. It was seeing it from a young age. But then what was it like being South African and learning this thing? Did you know that you could do it overseas? Was there anything on TV when you were growing up that you saw internationally? Or what was the whole situation of growing up around wrestling like in South Africa at that time?
Yeah, many people don't know this, but in the 80s, South Africa was one of the hottest spots for wrestling in the world. Before Vince McMahon monopolized wrestling worldwide, we had territories. Like you had the Texas
Yeah.
territory, you'd had New York, and you'd have all these territories. And a lot of those guys came to South Africa. It was like an unofficial territory. Like in the 80s, I saw like I was like 5, 6 years old. I saw Hulk Hogan, I saw Andre the Giant. They used to come wrestle there all the time. And then in the 90s it kind of slowed down. End of the 90s it kind of died off completely when my dad died because he was the only one of the only big promoters left. But I was still in high school and I needed a job, so I started working for him. I started doing security because he ran a lot of companies, and then I started refereeing matches. And I always knew that was what I wanted to do. But when I was like, I think it was 12 or 13, I refereed a match because there was nobody else, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But being inside the ring, seeing how the magic is done, I mean, I decided when I was 10 years old, I decided that that's what I was going to do. And, like no one from South Africa has really made it big. Even my mom was like, nobody's made it, so how are you going to do it? And I was like, exactly, nobody's made it, so that is why I'm going to make it, and I kind of dedicated my life to that. I went to college in England right after my dad died, right after matric. My dad died in the final exams of matric, actually, and
Sheesh.
I didn't want anything to do with it again. And I started traveling through Europe, and I went to a show one day, and I saw AJ Styles wrestle Johnny Storm, and I was like,
Oh
okay, I
wow.
need to get back into this right now. Right now. So and I was already like 4 or 5 years into wrestling, but I took a year break to go to school, and then I started training immediately. Started training, did some shows all over, and then I got kicked out of England, moved back to South Africa, and at that time, a South African wrestling promotion got a TV deal. We were on SABC. I'm not sure if you can remember that.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
I told myself, so I'm going to give myself exactly 3 years trying to get a WWE contract, right? And while everyone was telling me it's impossible, it's impossible, and I was like, all right, I give myself 3 years. I studied, I worked out, I got a job in the gym as a trainer, so I can work out 2, 3 times a day. I would wrestle every day. I would study tapes. It was a long, long journey for me. A lot of people get picked up in their first year or two, but it was 10 years of working really hard at that. And then, yeah, I finally got picked up by WWE, and the rest is history.
But how did you find that process of actually learning the ropes, like getting better? Like, did you have other people to work off of? Like you say, you were, studying tapes, but, when you're in South Africa, and I know the wrestling here, with some of it, I'll be honest, like, wasn't necessarily on the same level as other places. So did you find people that you could work with that, you could improve together, or what was that situation like?
Yeah, there was a few people that kind of had the same mindset as me. A lot of them kind of got out of the business. I mean, Adam Rose, he was there
Yeah,
since day one with me, and me and him always
he's
had a
got an
good
interesting
connection.
story.
Yes, and we had a different understanding of the old school people, but we did learn a lot from them. And you even learn from people that don't know what they're doing, because you're like, okay, that's definitely not going to work. That's definitely what I'm not going to do. It was hard to have good matches in South Africa. And my goal was just to have good matches with good people all the time. That's why I went to England. That's why I wanted to leave the country. Because, like you said, I mean, there is actually a lot of talent in South Africa, but they don't get to, like anything, right? What makes you good at it is by doing it over and over and over. Like when I moved to the
Exactly.
United States, we were doing like 5, 6, 7, 8 matches a week. In South Africa, you're lucky if you can do like 3 a year. So like the guys don't really progress there, but I mean they're catching up, and eventually I'll open some wrestling schools there and I'll run some shows there, so the guys there can get better. I mean, there's a lot of potential. They just need more, not practice, more experience, just in front of live audiences. Because you can practice in a ring in your backyard till you blue in the face, but it's completely different being in front of a live audience.
I can imagine. It's just, I mean, I do stand up comedy, and a lot of what you're talking about actually just resonates because we don't get to perform it, even outside of a pandemic, we don't get to perform it anywhere near as much as the guys do overseas. And it does feel like you're always just that step behind until you can, yeah, you can just get more gigs or find other ways to do it. But, there's nothing like experience. And I take it FCW was where things really like started to step up for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was already on a completely different level when I went back to South Africa for that 3 years. Like, you can listen to Adam Rose. He actually said this in an interview. He goes, "Man, PJ got back, and he was just on a different level." And I was like, I never thought about that, but I was, because I've wrestled all around the world before I went back to South Africa, and they had to bring in internationals to work with me because I couldn't work with any other local guys. But yeah, that's also at that time I was like, like studying like tape, and like me and Ray, Adam Rose's real name, Ray, we used to like get in the ring all the time and like practice stuff and like do different things, and try. Sometimes you throw shit at the wall and you see whatever sticks, and I feel like, and that's what FCW was. It was a lot of that, just different stuff, different stuff. But I was already a polished wrestler at the time, so it was kind of easy for me, and it was fun, because everyone there was on my level. So I was like, wow, like I can literally have a good match with anybody there without even trying, and coming back to comedies. It's actually, people relate this to comedy a lot, because you don't tell the same jokes in Cape Town that you do in Durban, right? You change up your
No.
shtick, and it's the same in wrestling. Like people don't get that. It's a lost art. Like people just think it's like we just choreograph this whole thing, but when we're in front of a live audience, there's certain things that work and certain things that don't work. So you kind of like you change it up. But I mean that's the old school way of thinking. The new school guys, they don't really think like that, and that's but that's okay. Like everything evolves.
Oh, I don't know. Like, I think there's such a. I think wrestling at the moment's in such a cool place. Like, with stuff like ROH, with New Japan, with AEW, or and even with what's it, Impact as well. Like, they're all actually are showcasing a wider variety of wrestling than what we've become accustomed to. And I do think like there are some places where it's actually rewarded to be like that.
Totally, totally, and I love it. Like, and again, thanks to technology, we get to see all this stuff. Because when I was trying to make it, like I told you I was studying tapes. I was actually physically studying VHS tapes because we didn't have YouTube. I couldn't type my favorite wrestler into YouTube and learn moves. Like my dad was a wrestler, luckily, so he used to travel the world. So whenever he went to Japan or he went to the UK or he went to the wherever, he used to bring me back tapes. Like I remember watching ROH on like VHS tapes and like all like that. I watched it so many times that I couldn't watch it anymore.
Oh man, like I used to steal wrestling magazines from CNA and yeah, used to tape like whatever WWE stuff I could see on TV when it showed. And yeah, like it was so difficult to like finding wrestling back in the day, but you did have WCW on ETV sometimes as well, and like we got some exposure to it, but the culture just isn't the same. But nowadays, it's like it's so cool because with
Right.
like with Fight TV, you can sign up to anything and watch everything that you want. And YouTube as well has just made it so easy. Like I know so much more about ROH now because they've got a good YouTube presence. Like and because of you, like I was doing my research, but I found out like so much more. And like I enjoy the style there. I enjoy. I can't remember what it's called now, but the special matches that they have where you can only touch the ropes 3 times. What are those? What's that division called? The Honor Division or
Yeah, it's a pure wrestling division, which is
Pure?
like really like pure wrestling, like old school wrestling. Yeah, me too. That's a very fun style of wrestling, and I've always loved Ring of Honor. Since like 2001, since I saw AJ Styles, because he was like a big AJ Styles, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, all these
Yeah.
names that now. Like I've been watching them since like 2001 in ROH, and like these guys were fantastic, and I've always loved this style, and I was always hoping that I would end up at ROH one day. I was hoping to go there before WWE, but like WWE got me work papers from South Africa. Like what it's like having a South African passport. It's almost impossible to go anywhere. So when they signed
Yeah.
me, they got me a green card immediately right off the bat. It took them 11 months, but they got it. So that was my way into the United States.
Sheesh, it took them that long to do it is quite crazy. But I guess at that time, did you have that like hero's journey that like a lot of other people had gone through of like doing ROH, doing New Japan, and then going to WWE? Was that like the thoughts in your mind?
That was the goal, right? But I mean, I couldn't get in. I couldn't get in. I tried Japan for years, man. I've been trying Japan since 1997. When I
Wow.
started wrestling, I wanted to go to the still to the dojo, and I tried and I tried and I tried, and like they didn't think that anybody in South Africa was, I wouldn't say talented enough, but like they didn't think there was anybody in South Africa, like any wrestling, I guess. So like I tried different avenues, I sent my CV and my tape. I still remember sending a DVD and some pictures to Stephanie McMahon, to Vince McMahon, like literally everyone's name I could find at the office. I used to send my stuff to, and they invited me for a tryout at FCW, and yeah, luckily there were guys like Steve Kerr and Dusty Rhodes, and they loved me. They loved my style at the time because I was doing this like Playboy stripper gimmick, and they just loved it. And they helped me get signed.
Oh man, it must have been so awesome working with Dusty Rhodes. He's like one of the most legendary people in, wrestling, and
Oh,
everyone like just has like some sort of story. So what advice did he give you? Because he must have told you something.
oh, that I mean, it's so many things. Like I was very lucky that he loved me. Like he really, really loved me. Like I don't know if you followed FCW, but at the time nobody really had like merch or posters or anything. But Dusty just for some reason fell in love with me, and he made sure I got like this massive like 20-foot banner inside the arena when I was champion, and like it was so many things, like so many things. I'd have to sit down and think, but like he was definitely a huge part of my career, and because of him, I know the things that I know now, and I do the things differently that like it was an experience. Like FCW was like the best year of my life in wrestling because it was so much fun because I learned so much and I literally was just having fun. Everyone there was just like, "Oh, I gotta make it to TV. I gotta make it to TV." I was like, "Why?" Like we're wrestling every day and getting paid a lot of money to play with your friends. Like that was the dream for me. And
I mean,
then when
that
I got
sounds
pulled
like
onto TV,
NXT, like the later editions of NXT, not so much your edition.
yeah.
How was
No, I know it was very different back then.
Yeah, how was that pitched to you? Like, was it just like, "Yo, we're gonna do a reality story about wrestlers, and this is how it's gonna go"?
Yeah, actually, it was supposed to be very different. I don't. Do you remember the Ultimate Fighter, the UFC one, right? Where they're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
in the
yeah.
same house, and then so it was supposed to be like that. But like in wrestling world, the time ran out. They didn't get the house they were supposed to. They didn't get the TV. The company didn't sign up for. I forget, but we at the end of the day we got there and they're like, "Wow, okay, well we don't have a house, so we're gonna have to." Oh, and by the way, you guys are live on TV every time we're on the West Coast, and we did like 6 weeks on the West Coast, right? So it had to be live because we have so many time zones in the US. And we're like, okay, what do we do? And they're like, oh, we don't really know. Here's a match. All the promos were like on the spot. Like that's why a lot of them were so terrible. Even the
I
matches, like they were
remember.
just like on the spot, no planning, nothing. It was just like, go out there and just just embarrass yourselves. That's it.
I mean,
that
it
was
did
that was pretty
feel
much
like a
it.
reality show.
No, it didn't. It didn't at all. It just felt like a wrestling show that was really bad, like
Yeah.
badly planned.
Well, that was it, but then they actually did you guys a bit of justice bringing you into the main show. So, like, when you were going through that, how were you feeling? Were you embarrassed? Were you like, "This isn't what I came here for," or were you like, "Just trust the process, we'll get there eventually"?
I didn't even think about that stuff. People always go like, "Oh, wasn't that embarrassing?" I'm like, "No, I mean, you signed up for
That's the
that. I've
job.
done a lot more embarrassing things in my life. It's a job, and it actually gave me a really thick skin. Like I was always very offended by things people said, and like, oh man. And when I play the bad guy, always I get a lot of hate mail and speech and online, and I'm like, one of these people are serious or are they just playing along? But it just you grow like a really thick skin, so it was actually pretty cool. And the Nexus gimmick we did, that was fun. And I didn't even think about how cool, how fun it was back then. I was just doing my job, and I was getting paid a lot of money, so I was like, wow, this is so much fun. Like I get to travel the world with my friends. I've made such good friends with my crew. Ryback and Wade Barrett. Heath is like my brother. I mean, we shared a car and a hotel room for like 4 years every single day. I think I saw him more than his wife did, and we got to wrestle in like 30, 40 countries together. I wrestle in 65 countries now. So, and I've never paid for a plane ticket in my life. So I've been very blessed, like it's been a
Wow.
crazy journey, a crazy experience, and I wouldn't change anything.
Sheesh. Yeah, no, that is 65 countries without paying for a plane ticket is quite like, I don't know, like, that feels like you are living the wrestling dream because, like, in wrestling, the old adage of it is like, yeah, like working everything and just making sure that the money is always like coming in and like, yeah, that you're not paying for those sorts of things. So that's like, feels like you're doing a pretty good job of the old school wrestler trope there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean it's been fun. I don't know what else to say. It's just that a lot of people it's tough. It's really tough for people with families because they're away from their families so much. But I just turned 40, but in my early 20s it was great. Like I didn't have a family. I had nothing to go back to, so I loved living on the road. And now it's getting a little bit harder because travel restrictions and everything sucks. But I love traveling. I just love traveling. I don't think I'll ever settle down or have a family or like that. I can never see myself living that life.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. It gives you so much more freedom and it's impressive when people do manage to make it work, but yeah, I guess it allows you to just be a bit more of a free spirit and travel more and carry on doing yeah, the wrestling like yeah, just beyond what most people do. Although I guess these days the idea of like what age a wrestler can be is completely changed, right?
It has. It really has. Like when I started when I was 15, 16 in South Africa, and back then you couldn't be in a professional athlete under the age of 18. So, obviously I lied. I falsified my papers. Don't tell. I mean, it's out there now. People know what I did,
Yeah.
but that I wanted to be a wrestler so bad that I took every single measure possible. But yeah, now like like I remember too when they were signing people, it was like nobody over the age of 35, but it's still negotiable because then Santino started wrestling when he was 35, 36, and he made it really big. So they have these kind of guidelines, but nothing's set in stone. Like they're not going to stick to that. If someone really good comes along, they're not going to care about age. And yeah, like when I went to England too, like all the kids in the school, they were like 13, 14, like 12 sometimes, and I was like, wow, they got really good. Like I was there when Marty Skrull, the Will Ospreay, Mark Haskins, like all these guys were still like kids. They were like 11, 12 when I was living in England and training with them. And that's why they're
Damn,
so good now.
that's intimidating though. Like I can imagine like someone who was like thinking about getting into wrestling is now just like, oh snap, needed to start like when I was much younger because those guys are so good. And you're telling me that they've been doing it since that age. But then what I was kind of trying to get to was on the other side of that is you've got guys like Chris Jericho who are still like going at it, and I think he's like 50 now. And like, even someone like you who's had like these major injuries, it's really impressive how guys are able to work beyond like even Daniel Bryan coming back from a broken neck. Like it's I don't know what has changed. Do you think is just like the science like behind recovery and behind like everything you do gotten better? Has because I know like people used to complain about the lack of longevity as a wrestler. You've only got so many bumps. So essentially, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and it's different for different people. Like it depends how you take care of your body. Yeah, Chris Jericho blows my mind because he's a rock star in real life. So he parties every night. For me, I don't drink or anything like that. So I take really good care of my body. I'm into biohacking. I take really good care of my body. I actually feel better now than I did in my 20s. Because in my 20s, I also partied every day. I was drinking every day on the road, and like you get hooked on the pain pills because everyone does, but because your body's sore all the time. But I feel good now, because now I take care of my body. I wish I started earlier taking care of my body, but we all learn, and it's different. Like some people, just in real life, right? Some people might smoke one cigarette, they might get lung cancer. Some people might smoke their whole lives and they'll be fine. So it really just depends on a lot of other variables. Like some wrestlers, I think the average lifespan of a wrestler is like 5 years. So like guys like me and
Oh
Jericho and
wow.
Rey Mysterio who has made it this long, we're like not normal, I guess.
But I mean, is it a matter of just working out correctly, or what is it? It's like, what are you doing that's keeping yourself going like this? Because I know you've come back from like some pretty heavy injuries. So how?
Yeah, it's the whole lifestyle, right? Like, I mean, meditation changed my life. Like, we know that your mind is more powerful than anything. I read a bunch of books on people that heal themselves with their mind, and I know this sounds really like weird, but like, I mean, there are doctors who broken their spines and healed themselves. Like, the mind is very, very powerful. But I mean, apart from meditation, I take really good care of myself. When I lived in England, I was a chef. I've always been into healthy eating. I try to be a sports nutritionist at one stage. If I wasn't going to be a wrestler, that's what I wanted to do. So I have a very, very good understanding of nutrition and how the body works. Like, and I do a lot of biohacking. I don't know if you see me on Instagram. I do a lot of the red light therapies, the vibration therapies, a lot of cold therapy. The cryotherapy has changed my life. That'll elongate your career for sure. I just go the extra mile. Look what all the best athletes in the world does. Look what Tiger Woods does. He has a cryo chamber at his house. Look what Kobe used to do. Look at So I kind of like follow these guys and see how you extend your career. And a lot of it is mindset. Most of it is actually mindset. If your mind is strong, your body will be strong. And I know some people don't understand that, but once you figure that out, you can easily go to the next level in anything, and whether it's sports or business or life or anything. Like once you figure out the mindset part, that's probably the thing that sets people like me apart from anyone else.
Well, when did that all click for you?
The first serious injury I had. Because you're as an athlete too, or anything. Like think about this: if you love going to the gym, but you hurt your wrist or your ankle, you kind of get depressed because you have to stay home for 6 weeks. Ice and whatever, you have to rest. Whatever your injury is, you kind of lay around. And this is my life. Like if I had a broken leg and I couldn't wrestle again, like what was I gonna do? I got really depressed, and I started like thinking. I was like, okay. I was also in hospital and they gave me a whole bag of painkillers. And at the time, I kind of had a little problem. Not not scared to say this anymore, but like I had a problem already, so I was like, wow, I don't want to die. Like I've already lost a lot of friends to all these opiates and stuff. So I started reading books on alternative healing and holistic healing, and I started reading books and books and books, and I was like, I'm gonna just from here on be a better version of myself, like mentally, physically, and it turned out spiritually too, but that came later. But I had to start with changing my mindset, I guess, because I didn't believe. I was like, meditation, how is that gonna like ever help me with anything in life? And it did. It literally changed my life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I don't know about the stuff you're talking about, but I do know meditation, just in the brief experiences that I have with it, has been quite useful. Like just to slow things down a bit, just for me, that's been the greatest thing in it. And just to try and remind myself to not like, yeah, judge myself so hard and to like all of those things. And like, I find that that's been a cool experience. It's just teaching me
Exactly.
more about myself.
Yes, and also having fun. Like people take life way too serious. Like when I was in FCW, for example, like I mentioned earlier, people were like, "Oh, I have to get it on TV. I have to be on TV." I'm like, "Just have fun. Like this is you're getting paid a lot of money to play with your friends. Just have fun." And it's the people usually that have fun that make it. I don't know if you've ever noticed. Like, and I mean, obviously you got to take stuff seriously, but people take life way too seriously. It's really like if you treat it like a video game, I promise you'll get to the next level much easier.
I don't know. You kind of reminded me a little bit of like Alan Watts here. I don't know how much you've like delved into his stuff at all, but yeah,
Oh,
he's
I'm a
all
huge
about
fan.
life of this. Yeah, it's a dance. That's
It
the whole
is.
thing.
Exactly. And like, I mean, try that. That's how you change your mindset. Like, literally, just have fun. Even in the gym, like I used to like work out like seriously, like follow these programs. Now I'm in the best shape of my life. Like, I never ever follow a program. I never do the same thing twice in the gym. I do a lot of animal flow. I just, like there's so many people teaching animal flow now online, and I'm like, nobody needs to teach me this. Just go onto Google, see how a lizard moves and moves like that. Look how the chimpanzee moves and move like that. That's animal flow. You just got to move your body into different areas. Like I did for years and years. I did the bodybuilding thing, and then that's so one dimensional because like everything just moves like a bicep curl just moves up and down, up and down. When you do animal flow and you do plyometrics or like calisthenics, you move your body into different ways, and that's what actually has helped me and kept my body um, young, if you will, or just moving and working better. Than you just got to move, just move. You don't even have to worry about anything. Like just have fun. Like I go in the gym and I climb up the jungle gym. Maybe I'll do some pull-ups here. People look at me and like, what the hell is that guy doing? That's me. That's me in the gym. Like you just play around, and then the same in life. If you just keep playing, then your life will be better. I promise you, doors will open for you.
Actually, I like that though, like so that approach to gym, but it also makes sense for your style and what you do, like when it comes to wrestling, to not be doing just static, stuff like they do, like just the curls or whatever. Like if you're going to be moving around a lot, it makes sense that your workout should be you moving around a lot, like just in my mind at least.
No, exactly. I tell people that too. They're like, "Oh, hey, what do you do for the gym? Do you do like chest and bicep on Mondays?" I'm like, "No. I mean, I did that when I was 15. Like, that's like so like basic stuff." I'm like, you want to do functional training, like depending on what your goals are. Obviously, everyone has different goals, but like I try to do functional stuff. Like I don't just use my chest one day. So why would I just work out my chest one day? You use your whole body every single day. So use your whole body in the gym every single day.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Like I've had some experience with exercise over the last year, and yeah, the part of it that gets frustrating is just the monotony and repetition. So maybe I need to change
Exactly.
it up a bit. And yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know what the results are like. One thing I want to chat about a bit is you were kind of talking about earlier, like not really worrying too much about how you're booked, you just do the job. But do you have like a say in movesets, and is that like a part of a wrestler's like expression? Like is that your like your what's the term called for paint on a thing? Like your swatch of paint, essentially. Is that the thing for a wrestler? Is that how you express yourself creatively when
Yes.
you don't necessarily have control in the other aspects?
Yeah, so obviously with the bigger companies, you don't have a much creative control unless you make it to the main event. Then you have a little bit of creative control. but not much. Like you're just given instructions and you just have to follow it. You have to just do what they tell you. But that's also one of the main reasons I signed with Ring of Honor, because they give me complete creative freedom. I'm allowed to write my own stories, play around with my own character. I can go into storylines with whoever I want. Obviously I have to get it cleared, but it's very hard to not get it cleared. That's what made the Attitude Era so great too. I don't know if you watched the Attitude Era wrestling. That's
Yeah.
what made it so great, because there were no scripts. They were just throwing shit at the wall, and whatever stuck like that, Vince was like, yeah, okay, just do that, just keep doing more of that. And that's like, it's an art, like you said, like it's freedom of expression. You have to be able to express yourself. Yeah. And that's, I understand wrestling has evolved and it'll still evolve from here, but that's just how the bigger companies work. You just have to like follow the script, do what you're told. It's like, and like for a lot of people that works, and for me too, it worked a lot because I was learning, and I was working with good people. But then it gets boring, like you want to express yourself in a different way, and that's one of the reasons I left.
Okay, I get that. And I know you also didn't sign back with WWE recently to stay with Ring of Honor, or was it to go to Ring of Honor? I don't know how the story went.
Yeah, I mean, I just signed a year contract with Ring of Honor just to kind of feel it out, and then I loved it so much, like that the roster is so talented, the whole team is just amazing, and like I said, I can express myself however I want, and that's huge, that's massive. You don't actually get that a lot in wrestling, like not even in the smaller companies these days, but like it's I love it. I love, and a lot of people can just follow directions, because they don't really know how to be creative, and then that's what's wrong in my personal opinion with wrestling these days. Because at schools you get taught a certain way, you don't get taught to think for yourself, if that's for lack of a better term. It's a dying art how to be a freestyle wrestler.
I think sometimes you can see that in certain matches, just being a bit repetitive, and like it does take a bit of it takes the magic away. That's the thing. That's actually there are some wrestlers out there, like guys like Kenny Omega, in my mind, like really do like manage to, even with the same moves, like draw you in and tell stories. And yeah, like ROH, I've been noticing as well. There's such a good, like, because you're given time as well, like in the matches usually, and there's such good space to tell these stories. Even with you, like, I'm not too certain if you're towing the line of being a good guy and a bad guy at the moment, but you're playing around with like other people, and you're being a bit silly. You're having fun. And I think if you were in another company like WWE, the character would just be too defined almost, if that makes sense. It would be too like, you've got to have these catchphrases and do this thing. And like, yeah, I just enjoy that there are elements of wrestling at the moment where it can be more expressive. And I'm hoping that because of companies like ROH and, the recent stuff that's happening between all the companies, crossing over, the wrestling's kind of got its own universe now. So yeah, I think while maybe the schools aren't teaching everything they need to, there is something happening in wrestling at the moment. Or am I? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, everything evolves, right? So wrestling kind of evolves, and it's going to keep evolving. Like, imagine where it was 5 years ago. Can you imagine where it's going to be 10 years from now? It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of the old school guys don't like it. I love it. I love it. Like, it
Oh, but
pushes
they
me
just
because I
need
got to try
to
and.
open their minds a bit, in my mind, because like, yeah, the moveset's different and it's a bit more like out there these days. But like, I think some of the stories being told in the ring are way more entertaining and way more enjoyable than, some of the older stories, in my mind.
Totally, totally, and I mean that's how it's evolved. Like you've got to combine all that stuff, because it's cool to watch a match with like crazy high spots and crazy cool moves, right? But it's also cool to watch a match with story, like that has really, like you said, Kenny Omega with a really good story and backstory, and he draws you in emotionally, and that's what it is. Like now you combine those two styles, like the old school versus the new school, or whatever you want to call it, storytelling versus spot fit, whatever you want to call it. That's, you combine all those things, and then 5 years from now, there's going to be a completely different way of character development and storytelling, and you just keep evolving. You keep evolving and you keep going with it. And what's the saying? If you can't beat them, join them. Like, like a lot of these young kids, they don't care. There's no more respect or anything like that. Back in the day, if like if you're on the card with Raven, you would never do a DDT ever, and like you'll get killed backstage. But now everyone's just doing everything, so everyone's just trying to outdo everyone, and that makes a lot of people not happy. But I'm like, fuck it, if you can't beat them, join them. Good thing for me, I can do all the things that these kids do much better than them. So, I'm like, now you guys have to keep up with me. I love it when they call me old or something like that. I'm like, you got to keep up with me. So what does that make you? Like just really slow?
Well, I've enjoyed how your style has gotten more submissions based. Is like, I hate to say, is that an age thing, or is it more just an experience thing?
So that's actually the style that I'm really good at. But then I was also good at high flying, and being in WWE, I was never one of the bigger guys who could do that, right? So I had to do all this crazy stuff. But I can do all styles. Like in South Africa, growing up, we didn't really have a style. That's why my style is such a hybrid, and that's the style on the indies these days. I'm not taking credit for. Well, actually, I'm taking credit for that. Like we had the British style, and you get the Japanese strong style, you get the American TV style, you get the catch as can. Like
Yeah.
every place has a different style. But in South Africa, we didn't have a style. So what I did was I took parts of all those styles and I made up this hybrid style. And now everyone's doing that, which is cool. It's awesome because, and I'm really good at mat wrestling and pure wrestling. I love doing it. I've always, that's how you learn. That's what I learned first. And after my injuries, I was like, maybe I should just do a little bit more of this. And I mean, I still do all the crazy stuff I did. I just do everything now. Like I said, it
Yeah.
evolved. So like I feel like some matches I'll do that, some matches I'll do that. It keeps it fresh too, because people were like, oh, they don't know what to expect. They're like, oh man, what's he gonna do? What kind of style is he gonna follow today? And people think like, oh, he doesn't do any high flying like the other day, and then I just pulled out a springboard 450 or something crazy, and they're like, oh shit, he can still do it. Like it gives you more of that what's the word, like that factor.
So is that like what you're going for at the moment, being like a bit more of a crafty wrestler?
Yeah, I'm playing around. Like they give me creative freedom, right? So I don't get any direction of like this is what you need to do, or you have to hit these times or spots or whatever. Like I'm just having
Yeah.
fun. I'm like letting my actual personality come out a little bit. And sometimes I get aggressive and then I get mad, and I want to show that side too. Like I have a little. In real life, I'm a really nice guy, but like that. So playing the bad guy or being aggressive and rough on TV, I really love that because that's like a side of me that normal people or my friends don't see. So for me, that's my balance in life. And just again, just having fun, man. I try different stuff. Like every match will be different. Like the other day, I had to wrestle Flip Gordon, and this kid is
Yeah.
amazing. I know he can do everything under the sun, and we literally just didn't plan anything. We just went in there, and I'm like, hey, just whatever happens, happens. And we did some crazy stuff, and we did some normal stuff too. And it's just that's part of the magic. Like if you can create that magic and get people pulled into it, I mean, as a comedian, that's like the best feeling in the world. Like if you tell that joke and like everybody laughs, like that's that timing thing. Wrestling is the same way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I see so many similarities between wrestling and comedy in general. Like just the way matches are built and the way, like, it ebbs and flows, and how you build tension and you release tension. And yeah, no, like I see, like, to me, like, just what you guys do is on a whole other level, because while we expose ourselves in certain ways, you've got to execute everything that you're doing on the fly, like most of the time on the fly, and it's got to look good and be not kill you. So like I've got so much respect for the absolute, like, that's what I've always like been drawn to wrestling by, is that it's the craziness of it, the fact that you're jumping off the top rope and doing multiple rotations and slamming into another guy into the mat. Like, I know that that's going to hurt. Like, I know you're going to do it in the best way possible, but I also, like, to me, that has just always been like the craziest thing about wrestling, is how you willingly get thrown through a table. Like, so what is it about wrestling that makes you go through all these crazy things, other than obviously just the storytelling aspects of it? Is there something about when you're doing it and performing it that, yeah, just makes it something that you can't not do?
I mean, the main thing is the storytelling, right? We're all storytellers if you think about it. If
Yeah.
you're a
Okay.
comedian, you're an actor, everyone's a storyteller. So this is just the way we tell our stories. So we express ourselves differently. It's a mix between a lot of things. It's a mix between stunts, theater, and kind of cosplay, if you think about it. So we combine
Yes,
all those things.
exactly.
My dad used to call it a stuntman's ballet. So it's a piece of
That's
art. It's a beautiful,
perfect.
beautiful, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But it's also a very, I wouldn't say choreographed, but it's like a dance. It's a
Yeah.
like I've done some stunts in Hollywood and stuff, but it's so boring because you get to do it over and over and over from different angles. Wrestling is one take, and we do it live. So you
Is
you
it the
put on your
spontaneity
cosplay.
of it?
Exactly, and then just feeling the energy of the crowd, and like you have one take, so I mean you can either mess it up or it can turn out really good, and if it does turn out really good, then people will love it, and you'll pull them in emotionally, and it's like you can feel all that energy and emotion from the crowd, because we feed off that. Like the more they buy into it, the more I'll do, and then that's why I like freestyle wrestling because I don't like planning stuff. Because if they react to a certain thing, I'm like, okay, cool, they love that, so I'm gonna keep doing more of this. Because like I've wrestled in places like in the middle of nowhere where they didn't respond to any of the things that I thought they would respond to. So you kind of just change it up. And you're like, oh, okay, this is what I have to do. And then that's what I love about it. It's just yeah, on the spot, spontaneous. It's I don't even know. Stuntman's ballet is probably the best description I can give you.
No, I absolutely love that because I try to explain my love of wrestling to other people who don't always get it. And I'm just like, it's to me, it's the ultimate like theater because it's always on a wire and it requires such like dedication, like just absolute. You have to just go for it. You have to just live it and just be these larger than life characters in a world where I don't know, it's starting to mimic wrestling a little bit too much in that way. And I guess in some ways, do you actually see now wrestling almost becoming slightly more realistic in some ways? Like even just with like character development and stuff like that. It's no longer just these over the top characters, but something more nuanced.
I think we're actually going back to over the top characters. I think like maybe
Okay.
between 5 and 10 years ago, it was very like real, like UFC, right? Like I don't know if you can remember NXT. We all wore black trunks. We all had a first name and a last name. There was no gimmicks or anything. But I feel like now with like the popularity of like Marvel movies and the DC movies, everyone knows what wrestling is, right? Well, they know it's a soap
Yeah,
opera. Come on, like most people
exactly.
know, like that, and that's what you tell your friends. I'm like, dude, it's a soap opera for guys. That's basically all it is. So everyone knows what wrestling is and how it's done. So I feel like the over the top characters are making a comeback. I feel like everyone wants to see like the Marvel characters like fight each other in cool costumes and be like super over the top. I feel like that is going to make a comeback very soon if it hasn't already. Like look at characters like Bray Wyatt and like look at all these over the top characters. They're usually the most over. I
I
feel like
definitely
if
get
if
that.
more guys do that, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a show. It's like it's we're superheroes. Like you don't want to see a normal guy. Like I mean, Steven Seagal is cool, but if imagine if Steven Seagal wore like a ninja outfit, he'd be so entertaining.
I'm so with you there. Okay, so like I get you there. I'm not talking about like being in terms of like grit. I actually think what's been fun, like especially like yeah, with modern stuff, like is that people are being a bit more silly with it. But I think like it's just allowed it to be a bit more layered, like because there is like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like happening sometimes, and like it's not like I don't know, like it just I feel like there's just more to it at the like because there's so many levels and there's so many layers that are being played with and played against that even yeah, if you've got like an over the top character, that over the top character is going to have way more depth than if they were, in WWE in the 90s essentially. They're not there's no Isaac Yankums and
You're right, exactly. And I mean, it's just a different degree. Like if Isaac Yankem now popped up, he'd be super gimmicky and he'd be like over the top, and I think it'll work. It's just different eras, and you play around with stuff, and uh, it's a fun time. And like you said, like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and that's the point of wrestling, right? We want to blur that line between what's real and what's not. And every once in a while, two guys really get into it, and they really get mad, and it's like you see the kid in the front row, like, oh, dad, he's really beating that guy up, and the dad's like, no, 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 this is how it's done. But like sometimes that is what's happening. Sometimes like I don't like a guy, and I'm not going to mention any names, but we beat the crap out of each other. It does happen, and that's fun. And even in the back, like we'll be beat up and stuff, and I'll kind of just like look at him, and I'm like, I'll just kind of nod my head and do my own thing, because we both did our job. We both created some magic, even though we didn't like each other, and we got a little bit rough. But like remember as a kid when you were playing with your friends, sometimes it gets a bit rough. And like I played rugby. I was an eighth man, and I played really really rough. For me, rugby was about getting rough and getting into fights. Like I was that guy.
Okay.
I love yeah, I
You
loved it
you
so
were
much.
probably someone I hated, and like in high school, I would have been like, "Oh, that fucking jock."
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
Yeah, man. Actually, what I want to chat about in these last little minutes is something we haven't brought up yet. Is Lucha Underground. How did that all come about? Because that was one of the coolest shows, and I wish they'd got to finish everything that was started there. But how did you get involved with Lucha Underground, and how did it impact everything going forward? Because it was something that was super creative and really fun and interesting.
It was, because it wasn't a wrestling company. It was a TV company in Hollywood, and they just wanted to do a show with some wrestling on. So it was people. I mean, wrestling fans love it because to them it's just a wrestling show, but it wasn't. It was just shot differently. It was a TV show with wrestling on, and that's what made it so different. The one of the head writers, he was one of the head writers on Raw when I was doing the Nexus thing.
Okay.
Christopher did Joseph. So I know when he started that whole thing, I remember him calling me, and I was just finished with WWE, and he was like, "Hey, I got this idea. This is what we're gonna do." And I was like, "Ah, it sounds cool, man, but I don't really want to sign a contract anywhere. I just want to work the indies because I've never done that. I want to go here, go there, do this, do this, go to Japan, go to Europe, just enjoy my career right now." So he was like, "Okay, fair enough." I was like, "Maybe call me back in like a year and see where I am in life." And 6 months went by, and I started watching that on TV, and I was like, "What? This is amazing! How did I say no to this?" And
Oh, because yeah, you're
exa-
not in the first like wow. It's only
first,
like
yeah, I
after
wasn't in
Johnny
the
Mundo's like
yes,
whole
I wasn't in
arc
the
that you joined in. Sorry.
correct, yeah, I wasn't in the first season at all. I started on the second season, but I remember the 1st of October. It was exactly a year, and he calls me. He goes, "Hey, are you in?" And I was like, "I'm in, bro. I'm I'm 100% in." So I started on season 2. But yeah, that was a crazy experience. So much fun, unreal. Like probably some of the most fun I've ever had. Like I've wrestled WrestleManias and stuff like that, but wrestling in front of that lucha crowd was probably one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah, it just seems so like authentic in a lot of ways, even though obviously it's, all like it's more TV than like some other wrestling shows might be. But I just loved the whole presentation. I loved the storylines that we're going through. And then, yeah, like you, Jack Evans, Johnny Mundo, that was just a really dope team.
It was, and it was fun. And coming back to, they gave us creative freedom. They're like, "Yo, just just be these guys." Like we kind of like modeled our group off of remember the Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai, the original movies.
Yeah.
We kind of just modeled the characters of that, but putting in our own flavor and still being wrestlers, but being bullies. And like in the Mexican wrestling, you get the lucha libre, you get the rudos and the technicos, right? So we were the rudos, the
Yeah.
bad guys, and I think we did a fantastic job playing those characters, and because they needed that, because a lot of the masked characters, obviously they were the
Yeah.
heroes. So you cannot have a hero if you don't have the heel, the bad guy. So
And also
I
working with
it
Jack
was just
Evans in that case must have been pretty fun as well.
so much fun. That guy is so talented. People don't realize how good he is. Tagging with him, I would stand on the apron and I would just be like a fan, just enjoying the crap out of whatever he's doing. Like whatever he was doing, I was so entertained. And then he'd come over to tag me, and I'll be like, "Oh shoot, I'm in this match!" Like I was just so like, so like, just watching him like do his thing. He's an incredible performer.
Yeah, no, I dig that dude hard, and it's funny that he's taking on another South African as his partner now. But we
Yeah,
won't get into
I
that.
know.
Any New Japan things that are happening that you could maybe talk about? Because I know you were New Japan strong and have been wanting to go to New Japan, and now with all the forbidden door as it's being called being opened, and although RH and New Japan have done stuff together for years. But yeah, is there potential of more stuff happening or that you can talk about, or am I fishing too deep?
I mean, I'll tell you what I can. I mean, that's always been a goal of mine to go live in Japan for a year or two and just work there and work that style. I mean, I'm still working on that. I feel like it might happen if it will happen. It's just hard right now with the travel restrictions and blah blah blah. The state of our world. But Strong has a touring show in the US right now, and I'm doing a couple of them here and there, and it's actually getting pretty big. And I mean, how cool is that? That New Japan, the show, is actually traveling in the United States. So I think there's a lot more
Yeah.
opportunities for guys like me and a lot of those guys. And luckily, my contract says I'm exclusive in the US only, but I can work. There's a few shows like I can work PWG and I can work New Japan, which is awesome. That's some other things that I had to consider not going back to NXT because I wouldn't have the freedom to do all this stuff. So I really like where I am right now. I really like what I'm doing, and I definitely hope to do some more New Japan stuff, and I'm pretty sure it'll happen. It's just a crazy time in the world right now.
Yeah, so okay, we'll keep an eye on things as restrictions get lifted, and
Yes.
might see you in the Tokyo Dome one day, because that would be, I know for you that would be fucking amazing, and as a South African wrestling fan, that would definitely be like something I think would inspire a lot of other people, to actually go for it, because like you were saying, there wasn't anyone who took this journey before you, so you're kind of like the roadmap for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean that I have a bucket list in wrestling, and Tokyo Dome is literally the last thing that I have to accomplish. I've wrestled in Hanover, Germany, which is a big wrestling hub. I've wrestled in Arena de Mexico. It's like the Mexican Madison Square Garden. I've wrestled Madison Square Garden. I've wrestled like WrestleManias. I've wrestled all the cool places. So, I mean, I was main eventing the Staples Center in Los Angeles back in the day. Like I've done everything that I've set out to do except Tokyo Dome. So before I retire, I'm definitely want to do that. I think I'm in the right place right now to achieve that goal. So watch the space.
Cool. Thank you so much, bro. I'm gonna call it there. We can end it now. So thank you so much for giving me so much of your time and just being so open and honest.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you, man. It's always good to speak to another South African and talk wrestling. It's always fun to talk wrestling.